Hi everyone, and welcome to Deep Geek. Welcome to a live stream here with one of my favourite people in the Game of Thrones community, an absolute legend. Do you want to introduce yourself first of all before we get on to nothing else? This is Mark Sirhunts. Go ahead.
What's up, everyone? You can find me over at youtube.com/SirHuntsReviews. I don't know if I actually have that linked yet, but it's just YouTube Sir Hunts. I'm from Sir Hunts Reviews, and Robert is one of my favorite people in the A Song of Ice and Fire community as well. He's lovely.
You're too kind. Thank you very much. Okay, guys. So welcome if you're watching this as a video later on. Particular welcome if you're there in the chat room. I know that we've been slightly delayed in starting. Apologies for that. Today we're going to be looking at Arya. And the way that I want to do this is we're going to do it in roughly two halves. We're going to start off, look at Arya, the character arc so far, who she is, where she's come from, what the sort of the movement has been so far. And then in the second half, we'll get into a few predictions about what Arya's fate might be. So I can see there's a lot of people, lots of really good chat already actually in the chat room. And we will, as always, come straight to any super chats that we get. In fact, I did notice before we even started, Emilio, thank you very much for your super chat. That's very kind. And Elisa, I saw your super chat, which was from a while back, and I'll probably pick up on that one in the second half of this live stream, if that's okay. Okay, so let's just sort of kick off first of all by addressing one of the things we always have to address, which is the difference between the books and show Arya. Now, this was actually I think it was Telemasker Dan, one of my patrons, asked this question if we could sort of just tease out what are the differences. Mark, is that something you want to just sort of like draw out? So from my perspective, there's actually not much difference, but is there anything you particularly like to draw out?
I mean, to be honest, no, there isn't anything that comes to my mind. Immediately, the faceless man training in Bravos is a little bit different. It's more detailed. She learns how to like craft poisons and shit and stuff, excuse my language. And I mean, yeah, that other than that, they kind of obviously adjusted how she goes to certain places and the people that she interacts with, and like, you know, it's a little bit different in the novels about when she's killing Meryn Trant. But other than that, they honestly stayed pretty faithful to it. And I feel like because of that, there's such the strong source material. That's why Arya is one of the favorites. Like all of the people who are favorites on the TV show is because they, in my opinion, stick closely to their, you know, counterpart to the novel. They try to, at least.
Absolutely, and I think that's right. I mean, for me, I think that there are only a couple of relatively small changes. I think it's worth remembering that in the books, Arya's a lot younger. Maisie Williams has obviously sort of grown up through the show, but in the books at the current stage, she's still only about 12 years old, and she's seen some really horrific stuff. So I think that's the first thing I would sort of say is a sort of a subtle difference, is that all the bad things that you saw on the show, she's seen a lot worse in the books, and she's a lot more traumatized and a lot more of this kind of like very, very troubled child that you see on the show. And the second thing I would say is that they haven't drawn out the warging element. In the books, there's very clearly a strong bond with Nymeria. She has wolf dreams where she's like in the same way branded when she's like being inside Nymeria and going off and hunting and things like that. So that element has not been drawn out in the show. So I think those are the only two things I would sort of say in terms of difference. But generally speaking, in terms of what she's been doing, it's pretty much the same. Okay, so that's just sort of a little bit of a thing to warm us up. Mark, do you want to just sort of say, in terms of an overall character arc, where do you see her character as sort of going? Not in terms of predictions, but what are the sort of the key moments, would you say, in her life so far?
I just want to comment on something you said before about her not having the wolf dreams. It's also, I think the main reason why they left it out is because it would take away from how special Bran is Bran being the only one who can do this. Like each Stark has one thing they're good at. And in the novels, like you were saying, all of the Stark children, except for Sansa, because the lady died so soon, they all have those wolf dreams, but they left that out. And I think the main reason is to just show how special Bran is. You know what I mean? No one else can switch faces and change their voice and height and all that stuff like Arya. At least the Stark children anyway. But as far as like key moments that stuck out, I would say seeing Ned being killed, seeing Robb Stark's direwolf on his body, as like some of the earlier ones, and then just the journey, the whole entire journey with Sandor.
Absolutely. And just a few people in the chat are just saying your volumes are sort of going up and down a little bit, Mark. So if you want to just have a quick check on that.
Really?
Yeah. So in terms of, for me, where I see with Arya is that clearly the biggest point for her was seeing her father killed, and the whole problem that happened in King's Landing, where suddenly she finds herself as a child completely friendless, abandoned, hundreds of miles from anyone that she knows or feels she can trust. And all she knows is this great feeling of a need for vengeance. And through her time, you see this even before she gets to the Faceless Men. She has these series of mentors whose outlooks are quite brutal. They're very much about killing and death. So you get Syria Farrell. Yes, he was very much a sort of a flamboyant character, but he was there teaching her how to fight, followed up obviously by the Hound, who's got this very bleak worldview and is able to kill people seemingly without any remorse all the way through. And then Jaqen again, who can, when she encounters him, he's also this figure who seems to just kill without it meaning anything. So for me, death is one of these key themes coming through. Mark, is there anything about sort of her identity that you'd like to sort of bring out? And what I mean by that is that she goes by a lot of different names. What do you think that's sort of trying to tell us about her character? The fact that she's got so many different names. She's Arya. There's a while that she's called Aria. In the books later on, she has different chapters with different names, like
she eventually. She goes by Nymeria for a little bit. I think it's just mainly showing us that she's lost. She doesn't know who she is. She's trying to find out who she is. And then she finds out, she wants to become a faceless man. So then that no one identity, where you don't have to stick to one person, you're no one, that calls out to her because she doesn't know who she is. I mean, when you think about it, she lost her father. You know what I mean? And I feel like she looks up to her father more so than her mom, which is why Sansa's into the sewing and she wants to be a lady. She wants to be a queen. Eventually, she looks up to her mother more, whereas Sansa always is a northern girl in the traditional sense. That she loves to hunt. She loves to shoot a bow. She loves to sword fight. She loves all that. So the fact that she lost her dad early on, it's easy to sort of just kind of go with the wind and like she doesn't know who she is. You know what I mean? So I feel like that's all part of she's just trying to discover who she is. I think one of the more key moments is when she starts going by Nymeria. It shows you that, for one, she says you can call me Old Nan for short. So that kind of might be the fact that Old Nan's name might be Nymeria, but it's also more so into the sense that she's like a warrior queen. And, Nymeria, ancient stories of old, she is a warrior queen brought her people from across the Rhoynar and led them to a new land and is this great leader in Dorne and stuff. So I think each one of those names maybe calls out to a particular point in the TV show. And I'm not exactly sure I can't remember how it goes down in the books, but the TV show, it's the guy that's escorting her to the wall under the command that Ned Stark told him, look, there's Arya in the crowd, take her. You know what I mean? He gives her that name because he wants to call her a boy. Is it more as she just decides that that's what she wants people to call her when she runs into Hot Pie and Gendry?
Absolutely. And I think that with the names, this is something which she reflects on it, that this was even before she started this great journey. She was known as by different names. There was Arya Horseface or Arya Underfoot. It was almost as if she embraced the fact that she had different identities in different places. So I think for me, there's these two key themes that we get in terms of this character arc for her, which really shine out. We get this first one, which is about death, which I think perhaps we'll talk about a little bit more in a moment, because the Faceless Men link is key there. But there's also this one about identity, which culminates again with the Faceless Men. But all the way through her journey, she is becoming less and less who she is, and more taking on different personas. And through this, you suddenly get to the point where, and we sort of move slightly beyond this on the show, but in the books, the one thing which is really tying her into her own personality, to who she is her sword and needle. And that's when she thinks of her sword and needle, she actively, you can read it in the book, she talks about this to her, this is John, this was Rob doing this is her memories. And so when she's hiding Needle there outside the faceless men, the House of Black and White, she's actually, that's her identity that she's hiding. It's not just her sword in case she might need it, that's her identity. Is there anything else you want on that sort of identity kind of thing there?
You're just sort of touching on what you said last there, was like when they show that on the they do a really good job of showing that on the TV show, because it shows her, for one, they show the actual scene of her stashing it in the rocks, but it also lets you know she's about to go on this journey where she gets, and that's one thing. I know it's just kind of out of topic a little bit, but how insanely tortured she was when she first got to Braavos, like that. Not, I guess not when she first got there, but when the faceless men finally got her, she like went and got poisoned. It was insanely hard to watch. But I think the show does a really good job of showing you, you have that sentimental moment of her wrapping it up and putting it in that little hole, and it's just letting you know, like, yeah, a girl is no one for right now. You know what I mean? So that was it.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think, and actually, we just had a super chat. Amber Lynn, thank you so much, $10. Love you guys, and great topic. Thanks for keeping the Game of Thrones, keeping Game of Thrones alive, waiting for next year. Yeah, absolutely. It's a long wait, isn't it? But we'll be here all the way through, up until season 8 and beyond, because there will be spin-offs, so there will be lots more, and there will be books. Fingers crossed, there will be books. Okay, so let's talk about this kind of death idea. We've picked up on it a little bit before, and she sees death at a young age, and then she gets this idea on the show with Yoren. We see him when he's talking about how he sort of kept alive this almost sort of hatred or need to do something to deal with the pain that he felt with this kill list, which is where Arya gets her kill list from. And so this is something which clearly has been driving her through quite a lot of this first part of her journey. Do you think, Mark, that she sort of dropped that to go to the faceless men, or was this something which was still in her mind?
No, I think Sandor puts it a good way, where he says hate is a good of motivation than anything. You know what I mean? As long as you're still, because that's what kept him going for so long. I think that she never tucked it away. She actually embraced it fully when going into the faceless men. Like, she's supposed to be no one, but the only reason why she's there is to be able to seek revenge for House Stark. What's the first thing she does after she completes her training is go and kill every single member of the Freys, which, like we were just mentioning, one of those key turning points or those key moments in her life that made her decide to go down this path was seeing Robb at the Red Wedding, like dead with his wolf's head on top of his back. That would traumatize the crap out anyway. Long story short, Arya is going to be a psychopath. But anyway, no, like, it just, she embraced the hate fully. She never really put it off. I think it was the sole motivation for her wanting to become a faceless man, and that was part of the reason why she left the way she did.
Absolutely, and Jaqen actually he actually tempts her in with the idea that she could kill these people. This is almost the reason why she went there to start with. She wanted to get home first. She wanted to meet her family first, but she was almost tempted by the fact that he says, there are many names on a girl's list or on a girl's tongue, and hinting that she would have the ability to kill these people. So when she does finally make it over to Braavos, I agree completely. This was very much with an idea that she would learn how to kill the people on her list. Okay, so if we've got her up to the Faceless Men, and guys, if you want to talk more about the Faceless Men, then we can do that. But I was wanting to focus really in on Arya here. Mark, do you think that to try and bring together the plots from the book and the show, do you think that roughly what has happened in the show is going to happen in the books to Arya?
I hate doing that because I feel like one of two things could happen. One is like the book gets dropped tomorrow and then a big smack you in the face because my prediction was wrong, which we all know that's not going to happen. Or two, it's just it involves so much thinking. So it's not one of those questions I can kind of answer spur of the moment. Certain things like her making it back to Winterfell, of course. The reunion with Nymeria, definitely. As far as like her being the one to kill Littlefinger, maybe. I'm trying to think of all the major things she's done. Killing all the Freys. I mean, that's kind of like that's already been done. You know what I mean? With Wayman. So I don't know. I feel like certain things, yes, but everyone's journey and path is going to be different. The destination is going to be the same, but everyone's journey and path is going to be different. Like I'm starting to cling more and more to the theory that Jon won't come back in the books. I know that's like the least popular theory ever, but it's just, I don't know. You never know. It will be the one thing that we have up on book readers is like Jon comes back on this TV show. But yeah, I don't know. Just to sort of summarize, I think certain events, making it back to Winterfell, the reunion with Nymeria, those are going to happen. Other than that, I kind of want to leave it open in it. So I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that for me, I think Jon will come back. Sorry, mate, I've got to disagree. I know everyone says it, and I hate to agree with everyone, but I think that he will. I think that complete digression here, but I think that he will warg into Ghost, and then he will be brought back. So I think that's a slightly different mechanism happening, but I think that's what's going to happen on the show. And Arya, I think, will broadly follow the same route. I think that she will hang on to her Starkiness. And she will reclaim Needle, and she will head out. She will extricate herself from the Faceless Men, and she will head out back across over to Westeros. And now, whether she will meet the exact same people on her way up to Winterfell, whether she will do the exact same things, I don't know. But she will end up at Winterfell in the same way that she does on the show. I'm pretty sure of it in the books, and we will end up getting the Stark reunion of a sort in the books that we had on the show. Okay, so we've got just quickly, we had a super chat from Emmanuel. D&D are butchers. The show and books will have different endings. Well, Mark, did you want to come in on that one?
Yeah, I'll jump on that one. I don't think so, man. They sat down. That's like there's certain things that were guaranteed to happen, right? One of those things that definitely happened was the fact that they all sat down at a table, they had dinner, and one of George's stipulations for letting them do the show was like he asked them questions on how they thought it would end. They got certain things right, that being like Jon Snow's mom. It's like Stannis could still be alive. Like certain things can change it, and you make it think it's a totally different story. But the end game is still the same. Like hold the door. That's definitely how Hodor got his name. Holding the door, trying to save Bran. It would almost be a smack in the face if he made it 100% different than the TV show, because they had a deal. They wanted, George and Dan and Dave. They all, I'm assuming, came to an agreement. Now, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if George has actually adjusted the novels because of the decisions they made on the TV show. But in game, as far as like for the most part, who's still alive and what's going to happen between the Night King and the forces of good and evil, that's going to pretty much be the same. There's no other way of putting it other than saying the journey will be different, but the destination will be the same.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think there will be some differences, and the differences will be in the fact that we have already seen they made some small changes early on, around about season 2 and season 3, leaving some characters out and keeping some characters alive and killing some other characters, and these have had ripple effects out, which means that by the time we get to where we're at now, we get a huge amount of plot lines that aren't on the show that are in the books. We get lots of characters that are in different places and all the rest of it. Uh, that said, I think the broad ending will be the same. I think that they will simplify it on the TV show. I think that they will leave out a lot of the detail. My big fear is that they may end up with how we deal with the White Walkers is this just one big battle and then we kill them all and that's it. And this is not, the books are not just about here's a big baddie, we have to fight the big baddie and the humans win. That's not how it's going to be. There's going to be layers to this, and I honestly can't see George R. R. Martin, who is a pacifist, writing a story in which the way out of it, the solution to it all, is a battle. So I think there's going to be lots of big differences, but at the end of it, broadly speaking, we're going to be at the same place. And so we see, for example, I think Sansa's quite a good example. She's gone on a different route in the books than on the show, but she will end up in the same place. She will end up back at Winterfell, and having had the same, not the exact same experiences, but the same character growth to get her there. So I hope that one answers that. Sorry, Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, yeah, 100%. Like, she will probably, I honestly see Sansa ending up as the Lady of Winterfell for a time while Jon's out doing his thing, if he comes back, or just, just in general, when the Starks start coming back to Winterfell after this battle with Stannis and Ramsay, it's going to be, she'll eventually become the Lady of Winterfell for a time, maybe not for the entirety, but for a time. I think. And I just kind of want to address this real quick. You were saying that George is a pacifist. He's not going to make his story sort of like glamorized war. 100%, 100%. Could not agree more. The thing is not only that, at the end of it, it's still going to be years and years of theory. Once A Dream of Spring comes out and we've all read the last page, there's still going to be people speculating and seeing shit a whole totally different way. That's the beauty in his work. There's going to be still probably 5 years worth of debate even after the last book comes out. That's just how this kind of material is. But as far as like a lot of people, and I don't know if you think this way, but I kind of got that just from the way that you were saying it. A lot of people think that the show is glamorizing war and stuff, and it's just basically become like this just boob and dragon fest. I don't know. I feel like the main thing with that, and like I said, I don't know if you think that way, but I know there are people who do think that way. But I feel like they have to satisfy a different kind of audience. People who read a book are not the same people who are going to watch a TV show. Somewhat, and some people do both, you know what I mean? But for the most part, it's a different type of audience. When you're watching something on screen, you can't have all of these mysterious scenes that could lead to something else. And they do a good job of doing that, but you kind of just have to be straight to the point. So it makes it easier for people that are following because, the show's audience grows every year. So they're having to sort of, entertain those newer people who are just catching up with the story. Even though they may have watched all the other episodes before this episode is playing right now, they still have to make it somewhat easier to follow. The best way to do that is by making one bad guy, one good guy, and then people who fall in between those categories. So I feel like that's kind of what the show's gone down because they have to. It's an ever-expanding audience, and they just sort of have to cater to that kind of new audience. So I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if you think that way, but...
Yeah, I do to a degree. I think that the show, because it is moving forward very quickly, it's starting to take a lot of shortcuts, and a lot of those shortcuts are taking out the sort of the travel and the build up to things, which is where you suddenly get a jump cut to a battle and then a jump cut to another battle, and it seems to regularize it a bit. When the show does it well with something like the Battle of the Bastards, it shows battles as what they are. They are horrible things. They are gruesome. There are people in all sorts of agony all over the place that really didn't deserve to be there in the first place. That worked incredibly effectively. I think some of the later battles haven't done that so much. They've been more focusing on the sort of the heroism side. Obviously, in war, there are acts of heroism, but there's also lots and lots of tragedy. And what I think one of the key themes of the book is this idea of the little people, the people who actually suffer, the people who, while we're concentrating on these few dozen normally high-born, very rich people who are battling out for control of the continent, actually the people who are suffering are all the normal people. And I don't think that comes out quite as much on the show as it does on the book. But I think we're slightly getting away from Arya here, so I'm going to try and bring this one back and I saw we had another super chat, Crips of Winterfell. Thank you again, another one of my patrons, $10. This is getting to this idea about warging. If Arya is linked to Nymeria, who will her pack be? On her way home, she ran into Nymeria. This is on the show. On her way home, she ran into Nymeria, who had a pack of 7 or 8 wolves. And how does this play out with Arya's future? Will she eventually have a pack? I'd quite like to pick up in the second half of that about the future for Arya and Nymeria. But Mark, do you want to just sort of pick up on what was your take on that meeting between Arya and Nymeria on the show, and whether or not she is a pack now?
I mean, I took it when I first watched the episode, right? So I immediately I'll do a live stream right after it, and I kind of run through my thoughts there. I initially thought that what that was basically Arya, Nymeria sort of recognizing Arya, but then not really, and then just kind of for a split second realizing that she used to be someone that she knew. But I think in the behind that episode thing, Dan and Dave broke it down and was basically, it was the same line when Arya goes, "That's not you." That's the same line that between Ned and Arya. So it was almost like a complete circle coming back to that, where it's Ned was telling Arya that she should be a lady, she should learn how to sew and make dresses and wash clothes and all that good. And Arya was like, "Well, that's not me." So it's the same sort of way. She's asking Nymeria to come back with her to Winterfell, to come home. That's not her, in the sense that now she has her own pack. She's found her place in life, and Arya is in the process of doing that. Arya thought that her, place was alone, being no one, being a faceless man, but now she's headed back to Winterfell. She's going to become part of the pack again. It's the same role that Nymeria is already doing. She's the leader of a pack. She realizes that she's a lot stronger when she's got, a pack around her, a family around her. And the same as with Arya. Arya just hasn't gotten there quite yet. And then at the end of season 7, that's almost where she's at. She's in a pack again. Things are getting better. She is more likely going to be alive because she's a part of that pack. So that's kind of how it is supposed to be interpreted. So that's what Dan and Dave, mentioned in that behind the episode.
Yeah, I agree completely with that. I think this is a big difference between the show and the books. In the books, Nymeria has got a massive wolf pack of hundreds of wolves that are rampaging around the Riverlands, and there is that much stronger bond between Arya and Nymeria. So I don't think that scene will happen in the books. I think that when they meet again, it's not going to be this disconnect. I think that this is going to be there you are. Because they've been in contact for all this time.
If anything, through the wolf dreams. You know what I mean? So Nymeria has to sense that there's another presence in her, just like Arya senses that she's inside Nymeria. You know what I mean? So they feel each other, kind of.
Absolutely. Telemasker Dan, super chat, £5. Thank you. A gift for your engagement. Get yourself and the missus a sandwich. I think this is a reference to something I vaguely saw in the chat a moment ago, but I didn't take it in. So apologies. Thank you very much, though. That's very kind.
I can't remember what he said, but it was something before we even started. He said something like the god of sandwiches or something. I don't know. It was hilarious. I was laughing my ass off, but I didn't.
The sandwich thing, I have to admit, is my fault. I told the people that we were delayed because you were eating a sandwich, which is perhaps true, perhaps not. I don't know. You were eating. I don't know what you were eating though.
Yeah, I was eating a chicken Caesar sandwich.
There you go. It was a good guess then. Okay. Right. I just want to pick up on a couple of quick questions before we take a quick pause. Alison Mutlu did a super chat just before we began. Thank you very much, Alyssa. That's really kind. moving very much into the show territory here, is there any importance to the dagger that Arya is carrying, aside from killing the dead army? What is the original name of this dagger? Sir Hunts has just disappeared. Oh, he's back. Mark, do you want to talk about the dagger, the cat's paw dagger, just briefly? What is it, and what's the sort of the history?
Okay, well, I'm kind of gonna do some shameless self-promotion here. I did a video a while back before season 7 started where I predicted that it's actually Dark Sister. We do know that blades get moved around and named a lot, and Dark Sister is described as being somewhat of a feminine blade, but that's just the style of blade that it is. People are like, questioning me, like, no, it was wielded originally by a woman, but it doesn't necessarily mean it was made for. Either way, I think that there's a potential for the cat's paw dagger to secretly be this Targaryen dagger, or like this Targaryen heirloom. And what could have happened is, we know that ice got broken down because there was so much extra Valyrian steel. Well, something similar could have happened during House Targaryen. Maybe they didn't need as many steel swords because they had Valyrian steel swords, so maybe they needed like something more accessible, quick, like a dagger. We do know that Targaryens used to decorate their blades with dragon glass, and on the hilt of the cat's paw dagger, it has red dragon glass on it, so it's definitely sort of in line with that Targaryen theme of like being an heirloom. Other than that, I feel like it's I'm talking about that video here a little bit, but it's got dragon glass on it, right, which is obsidian, which is like formed in the heart of a volcano. So fire, right? Frozen fire. And then the blade itself is Valyrian steel, which has dragon fire incorporated into the recipe somehow. Like dragon fire is the only thing that can get hot enough, I guess, to melt carbon obsidian to like regular steel. And that's how you make Valyrian steel. But either way, this dagger, regardless of where it's from, it's fire on fire. It's super fire. It would be the one thing to kill the Night King. If there's a weapon that exists, this super fire awesome freaking dagger would be the one weapon to do it. My blind fell down. That's why I was going over there. I let the cat in, and the first thing he did was run to the blinds and start going in between them, and he knocked the blind down, so I was trying to put it back up. But
excellent. Well, I thought that was a really good answer. Thank you. Thank you for that. I've been scrolling back to find out who it was who proposed to me. So apologies. So just so you know, guys, we try and keep on top of all of these comments, but sometimes when they go through really quickly, we do miss a few of them. So apologies. And I appear to have missed a proposal. So sorry about that. But True to You has given me $10 and said congratulations. And Emmanuel has said, when is the special date? Thank you. I feel very, very touched by this. I just feel a bit sad that I don't know who it is I'm getting married to, but that's very kind, everyone. Thank you. Okay, I'm just going to take a quick pause here for one moment to just to say a couple of things quickly to my patrons and my subscribers. First of all, I want to just say Westworld. I am so excited by Westworld. Westworld is starting up this Sunday, and I'm going to be covering it from beginning to end, all the way through. And I've just announced my schedule for what I'm going to be doing during Westworld season. Every Sunday, hopefully, obviously, life may happen, but what I'm aiming to do is every Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, I'm going to be doing a live stream as a sort of a pre-show for the episode coming up. We'll also have a little look back at the previous episode, and we'll just try and draw out what's going to be happening and what's actually going on in the plot, because sometimes Westworld can be quite complex, but we're going to just try and tease that apart a little bit. Then as soon as I can after each episode, hopefully on the Monday, I will get out my episode breakdown and explained videos where I should go through and I'll just try and show what's really going on in the plot, what's happening in the different timelines, what's happening to the different characters, and where this might all be leading. Then some point around midweek, I will do one other bit of content. Sometimes that'll be a video focusing on whatever the key question is everyone's asking that week. Sometimes it'll be another live stream, but I'll be doing 3 bits of Westworld content every week, all through the season. I'm not going to drop Game of Thrones. I'm going to keep on doing my Thursday live streams like this. I'm going to keep on doing the Traveler's Guide every Friday, and there'll be a few theory videos thrown in as well. So I've not forgotten about Game of Thrones, but I'm going to be really excited about Westworld for the next few weeks. So that's one thing. Second thing, patrons. I hope you spotted, for all $5 patrons, I hope you spotted my narration from the Tyrion chapter from the Winds of Winter, the pre-release chapter there. So that's there. It went live, I think, yesterday. If you've not spotted it, go and check that out. And we're almost, I'm almost ready to announce what is the next video that I'll be doing that my patrons, my $10 patrons, have voted on. There is a leader out of those 3 topics that I set out there. So if you've not voted yet, you've still got a few hours to go and do that. And if you're at all interested in either supporting the channel, in helping me do more content like this, or if you want access to those things like my narrations from the Winds of Winter, there's a link down in the description to my Patreon channel. That's patreon.com/indiegeek. That's my advert over. Mark, what are you up to? Is there anything you want to sort of direct people to?
Yes, absolutely. As of last night, I've freaking binge watching. I got 3 episodes left of Westworld. So I plan on doing, and I want Robert, you guys need to convince him. I want him to come on for I don't know if I'm going to do it for the first episode, maybe. But I'm going to do live after the show, like just straight up. We'll start talking about it. I'm just going to have the same schedule as I did with Game of Thrones. So I'll do the live stream for about an hour or 2. Then I'll stay up until 6 in the morning because I love y'all and make my review for the episode. But I want Robert to come on. For the, like, I know it's gonna be late. It's gonna be super late over there, but I feel like you guys can guilt trip him into doing it. One of the ways by doing so is by slapping likes on this video. Slap likes on it. I saw there's like 50 some likes, but there's 120 people watching right now. Y'all need to slap some likes on it. But yeah, nah, man. Oh, do you think? I have a question for you. Do you think that Westworld in its entirety is taking place under the ocean or on another planet? Because there's so many moments, and for instance, I honestly think Robert is coming back because in the first episode, he mentions we can cure disease. We can even bring back Lazarus out of his cave. Like he basically says, the very first episode, conversation between him and Bernard, he tells him, hey, look, we can bring back the dead. So I don't know. I feel like that's heavily foreshadowing to Robert coming back into next season. And then also, I feel like there's several times, I think once when Bernard's trying to call his wife, like, because they're talking about their son that died, he says it's, you know how hard it is to get a line out of here. So if it's out, that makes me think that they're in a facility, obviously not just the facility of the park, but maybe they're like inside of a dome in the ocean. I don't know. I saw that on Film Theory. What do you think? You think Westworld is?
So in short, and I'm not going to go into I've got so many theories about Westworld. I think it's on an island. I think it's on the planet. I don't think it's underwater. I don't think it's on another planet. I think it's on an island. I think that in terms of Ford coming back, I think that probably was. I've come full circle on this, but I think that probably was human Ford dead. But I think that doesn't mean that we're not going to see Ford again. I think we will see child Ford this season, and I think we will see the younger Ford, sort of the young man Ford as well. And it would not surprise me if we see Anthony Hopkins again at some point in the future season, if not this one, because I think that the one thing we know about Ford was that he was a complete control freak, and there is no way on this planet that it will have set up this elaborate plan that he did and then just let it go. So he will want to have some control afterwards. But I'm gonna rein this one in for Westworld. Alyssa Mutlu, thank you. I saw your super chat there saying, "Can I explain Westworld?" Yes, I can, but it takes longer than 2 minutes. I'm afraid. I've got 2 live streams coming up on Westworld. Actually, I've just gone live stream crazy this week. So I've got one coming up tomorrow, which is on this channel, and is the final part of a series that I've been doing with on Justin Thomas's the Justin Thomas Show channel. And so me and him and AU Packmule, who and many of you know is a great guy, we're going to finish off that series, which is looking at season 1. We're going to look at the last episode. We're going to look at episode 10 in that live stream, and we're going to try and tease out from it what that episode tells us about what's going to be happening next season. And then on Sunday is the first of my pre-show live streams. So please do tune in for one or both of them if you possibly can. And Valerie, thank you also for your $10. That's very kind. Enjoy all your videos. Thank you. You say you're very welcome. Thank you for the super chat. Okay, I think what I'd quite like to do is to bring us back onto this, back onto Arya, and we've got a couple of sort of things that I just want to sort of get onto, but it's what happens next is the question. What is Arya's fate? So do you want to kick us off, Mark? What's your sort of high level idea? What do you think? Is it going to be the same in the books and the show? Is she going to live? Is she going to die? What do you think?
I mean, I feel like I'm just sort of like repeating what's been said, but I feel like Arya is she's gonna survive. If she dies, it would be okay. So I'll make two predictions then. If she dies, the scenario in which she's dying is that she decided to leave the pack, which would totally make sense because there's heavily foreshadowing with Arya being told by Sansa that the lone wolf dies, but the pack survives. So if she were to die, the situation would be her leaving Winterfell and going to go on her, and I've been saying this since before season 7 ended, but going on this sort of like suicide mission to go and kill Cersei. No matter how it gets done, she just knows that it will end. Her life will end with killing Cersei. So if she were to die, I think it's going to be in seeking revenge because she broke her own rule in leaving the pack, and now she's going to die. If she survives, if she makes it all the way to the end, then maybe like Sansa dies and like a few other Starks, and then she ends up not wanting to stay in Westeros because it does nothing but just remind her of all the hurt and all the pain that she's been through. So she wants to leave and then go west of Westeros and eventually go out to Lonely Light and maybe even west of that. So I don't know. Those are the two kind of scenarios that I see happening. If she survives, she has to leave Westeros. If she dies doing so, leaving the pack and seeking revenge.
Absolutely, I think I agree with a lot of that, and so I've just been reminded in the chat. 26 Art Girl, you're right. You did ask me a question on Patreon, which we haven't got to, which was probably should have been in the first half because it's about stuff that's already happened. Do you think it's possible? So, sorry, Mark, we will come back to those points you made in just 1 second. I just want to pick up on this question. Do you think it's possible that when Arya returned to Winterfell, that the two sisters, Arya and Sansa, were really planning on killing each other, but Bran stepped in the middle to make them stop and tell them that Littlefinger was behind it all, creating chaos? So do you think that was what was happening? Do you think that they were really against each other and then Bran stopped them, or do you think something else was going on?
You want me to answer?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. I mean, I don't know. I feel like they're two different people. I don't think Sansa would have killed her sister. I think she would have put her in a jail cell, maybe scared her a little bit, maybe, sort of said, hey, what the fuck are you doing? Maybe shook her like, come on, dude. But I definitely think that Arya would have killed Sansa if there was no intervening, like 100%. Arya, and that's the thing. It's crazy because if you want to look at it as like favorites, Arya is literally top 2 between Jon, Daenerys, and Arya. And I know you're like, that's 3 people, but no, it's like it's top 2 because they're all equally spread. So I just gave them an extra spot, but really they're all number 1. Either way, Arya is a psychopath. She's insane. She is literally, she's suffering from PTSD. Sure. But if you were to remove her from Westeros and put her in modern day, she's fucking lunatic. So this being said, I definitely think that Arya would have killed Sansa if no one intervened. I do not think that Sansa would have killed Arya. And like I said, I don't even like Arya. I mean, I don't even like Sansa that much. And it just lets you know that Arya is crazy. She would have 100% killed Sansa. And that would have been a break the internet moment for sure. If that happened in season 7, if she killed Sansa, that would be insane.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, for me, I think it was broadly what we saw. I think that there was tension between Arya and Sansa. I think that Bran did discover a whole load of stuff, but it was them working together. It was that they all were trying to figure out what was going on. Sansa knew that Littlefinger was up to no good. Bran discovered some stuff about him, and then Arya was the tool that they used to kill him. I think it was that simple, but they because there wasn't huge amounts happening in Winterfell in season 7, I think they sort of extended a little bit and tried to draw out a little bit of drama that perhaps wasn't there. So I think that's what was going on.
Yeah, it was convoluted to say the least. I was questioning motivations behind not only what they were doing, but what they were saying and the way they were saying it. I was like, That kind of sounds like Arya. I guess Arya is a freaking CUNT now. Like I don't know. Whatever. It was very hard for me to watch. Not because it was, like torture because we didn't know suspense, but no, it just didn't seem like it was as well written. And like you said, it kind of seemed like they tried to stretch and make stuff happen that wasn't just coming together. That's my one pickup with if that's even a thing. That's my one hiccup rather with season 7 is the Winterfell plot line. It was all over the place. And I thoroughly enjoyed the season, so I don't know.
Absolutely. I mean, I agree. It wasn't a particularly strong plot line, but I think what we saw happen was what was really happening. I just think they were trying to make it look cleverer than it actually was. My big gripe there was that Littlefinger was basically stupid all the way through it, and that isn't Littlefinger's character. So I think he should have figured out what was going on because he's a clever person. But that's my gripe with. Well, yeah, but he thought that he was being cleverer than them, and I don't know.
No, I mean, like, you haven't heard the theory that wasn't him that died. That was a faceless woman that he paid.
I have heard that theory. I've yet to hear any evidence to suggest it's true.
Okay, well, okay, here you go. Littlefinger, his family is from Braavos, so he grew up knowing his entire life what a faceless man was. Once he finds out that Arya is a faceless man, from those moments forward, you can kind of see the look at his face, like, oh, I know what she's about. And I think from that moment forward, everything he did when he knew Arya was following him, when he met with that girl, that was when he paid her the iron price to look. I need you to die for me. We know that it's possible for faceless men to wear the face of people who are alive. We saw it with Arya and Jaqen. So it's definitely a possibility, and it would totally make sense and be in line with Littlefinger's character if he knew growing up his whole life how badass the faceless men were. And he's like, she's a faceless man? I need to get out of here. So he slipped out of Winterfell, and maybe I don't want to go too far into it, but he could have gotten away, and then she could, be wearing the face. We saw Arya do a spot-on impression of Walder Frey. So if this is a skilled faceless man, 100% possible that Arya killed a faceless man and not Littlefinger, and Littlefinger slipped out the back door. And then maybe he steps out of the shadows at the very end to become King of the Ashes over the Iron Throne. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, when I say I've not seen any evidence, I mean, what I mean is that what we actually have in front of us is the fact that his granddad came from Braavos and he gave a coin to a woman, and that's it. So basically, I mean, yeah, it's possible. I'm not disputing the fact that it could have happened, but and he does know about the faceless men. We know he knows about the faceless men. I've theorized many times about the fact that I think he hired the faceless men for something, but there's nothing to actually prove it.
Other than him himself, like, we know that he's a master manipulator and he's always 3 or 4 steps ahead of everyone. Trust me, I hate this dude. I want him to die crying like a little, like how he did. But it just totally makes sense, because Littlefinger is not one of those people to just go out without a fight. You know what I mean? And I feel like, well, actually, no, he is one to go out without a fight, but he's not going to do it if it's possible. And I feel like he was given enough time to prepare for it, to send for a faceless man, and to, like, it would, I don't know. I feel like more evidence other than his grandpa's from Braavos, and he gave the girl a coin. Other than that, it's just he is all the evidence in and of itself. He's always 3 or 4 steps ahead of everyone else. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm more willing to accept that was bad writing by the showrunners than anything else. I mean, we've also never seen anything like that from the Faceless Men before. They take contracts to kill people, not to be killed themselves. So I don't know. Again, I think we might be slightly digressing here. I like the theory. I'm sorry. I find it a fun theory. I don't see much evidence for it. Crypt, another super chat. Thank you so much, $10. Talking about the pack, saying, I tend to feel that Arya's pack will be the production company in Braavos. I know this is a Azora Hypes theory, but the Nymeria pack tends to foreshadow this. In terms of I think the production company in Braavos, they appear in the books as well as the show. They seem to be a mechanism through which she becomes aware of who she is and her real identity and where she wants to be. So in the on the show, you can see them, that she goes there and she sees a play about her family. She sees her father on the stage. She sees her sister on the stage, being, absolutely having the rip taken out of them all the way through. And she was there hired to kill Cersei, which is clearly a person, or the person playing Cersei, which is clearly the thing that Arya was wanting to do. So this, I think, was a deliberate attempt to get her to come back to a memory of who she is as Arya. And I think the same kind of thing happens in the books. We've not seen the end of that plot line yet, but I think that's going to happen in the books. So I think that's their role, rather than them being sort of pack for Arya. But what do you think on that, Mark?
I don't know about that, because I feel like there is a little bit to it that, like you were saying, that Arya gets to kind of continue her faceless men training almost and pretending to be other people. I just don't see that happening. It kind of works in the sense that she'll get to travel around, which is what she wanted to do. I just don't think a warrior, a cold-blooded killer suffering from PTSD, who has all this insane type of psychological defects in her brain right now because of what she's been through, would be okay with pretending to be someone else, which I guess it even kind of makes even more sense, because a lot of actors I've heard are crazy. You know what I mean? And them playing roles and pretending to be other people sort of helps with that. I don't know. I feel like her end game is either dying and still trying to seek revenge. I feel like that would be the ultimate sort of her best climax. I know it's not what everyone wants to see, but just to see her regress. We do know that not every single character is going to be 100% straightforward, and we're going to love the way their ending is. So I think it would be, and like I said, she's one of my favorite characters. I just think it would be awesome if we think she's a part of the pack. She slips away, goes to go kill Cersei, and dies in that process of trying to kill Cersei. So it's like it just cements over for the rest of the Starks that you got to stick together. You got to be a part as a pack, because the lone wolf dies. Arya just died trying to do lone wolf type stuff. So I don't know. I feel like, I don't know. It's just kind of hard, you know what I mean, to kind of guess where it's easy to sort of say whether someone's going to live or die, but to where the final scene with them is going to be, that's different, because you don't know whether she marries Gendry and her and Gendry end up getting together to sort of like be as part of like Ned's last wish. Like I actually just did a video right before we did this where I mentioned that, maybe as part of Ned and Robert's dying wishes, they kind of come together and make a union. You have House Stark and House Baratheon. And one of the ways they could do that is by Bran, who's known to do this. I know what you did last summer. I'm going to tell you stuff about your past so that you know that I'm telling the truth. Maybe he can do that and go back and look and see that conversation between Robert and Ned and be like, oh, okay, well, they wanted you guys to sort of get together anyway. They wanted their two houses to unite. I don't know. I feel like that may be either Arya dies or just like kind of getting together with Gendry, or maybe even going east of. Oh, man, I'm rambling on here. I'll pass it back to you.
Always intelligent rambling, though. That's one of the things I like about you. So I saw, Crips, you said just in the chat just after that that you were thinking about whether or not this might be her end game, whether she on the show rather than in the books, she ends up with the mummers troupe, with the theater troupe, because this kind of fits in with her identity thing where she like takes on different identities. I don't know. I think it's a nice idea. I think it's one I've not considered before. I think that's not where she's going to end up in the books. I'll come on to that in just a moment. But yeah, it's certainly a possible for the show. Maybe not quite as likely in my view as some of the other options. Kathy Stark, thank you very much for the super chat. Great discussion, guys. Just asking a follow-up question about the faceless man thing, and the theory you were setting out. Actually, I think, Mark, wouldn't a faceless man be able to recognize one of their compadres? So this is one of the, I would argue, many strong arguments against that theory, is that surely Arya would have realized or noticed that this was a faceless man who she was killing.
I mean, sorry, I got distracted because I was reading the chat.
That's absolutely fine. Do you not think that Arya? The question is, do you not think that Arya, in that theory you said out a moment ago about Littlefinger substituting himself, do you not think that Arya
Okay.
would have been able to spot that this was a faceless man?
Well, in normal circumstances, yes. If Arya had finished her training and she was a true faceless man who was no one, she should be able to spot someone else who is no one. But that's not the case. Arya is a girl of Winterfell. Arya is ex-faceless man. So just in the simple fact that you could argue that Littlefinger was just slipping up and that's how he died, well, you could argue that same thing with Arya. Arya was just slipping up and that's how she didn't realize that that other person was a faceless man. And that's the thing. If you're doing your job 100% as a faceless man who's completed their training, you're supposed to be no one. So no one is supposed to be able to notice that you are that. You know what I mean? So I don't know. It's almost like when someone goes, I'm a professional ninja. And then they go, what? And they go, did you see that? And they go, see what? And then you go, exactly. It's almost like if you're doing your job like a good musician does their job well, when you can't see what the trick was, or you know what I mean? So I don't know. And I meant to say magician. I said musician.
Yeah, I think that this is one of those things where we don't know the full detail of how the faceless men work, so we don't know the answer to that. Instinctively, probably you would have thought she would, but we don't know. The thing about that theory with Littlefinger and the faceless men is that it's like all good tinfoil theories, is that it's got a few facts which could support it, but fundamentally you can't disprove it. You can't say this did not happen because you haven't got evidence that definitely didn't happen. Probably didn't, but there's no way that we can say for sure.
Just to sort of touch on that before, like them being able to recognize each other. That's kind of a theme in Game of Thrones, because as soon as Stannis sees Gendry, he's like, "Yo, that's Robert's child." So I don't know. I feel like maybe that is sort of a thing. Maybe that kind of debunks it, because like you're supposed to be, but that was his seed. He could see that, that Gendry was his kin. So I don't know. That's something different. Maybe just random. Just my ADD getting better.
I have a feeling that I missed a super chat from one of my subscribers a while ago. So Michael Palmer, apologies, your super chat's gone off the end of my thing, so I can't see it. But thank you very much for that. I did see it went through. That was very kind. Okay, Mark, can I put to you this idea about Arya dying? I think we both instinctively think that she won't. We think there are other things which we'll come on to again, but I did have via Twitter, Pablo B just forwarded me a quote, which is Mark's disappeared.
Oh, I'm still here. Just had to let the cat out. I'm listening though.
Yeah, no worries. So Pablo B came out with a great quote from book 1. And I might even be on the show as well. John says to Arya, "You'll be sowing all through winter." This is the context here, is that she's been running away from the scepter, and yeah. She might get punished. And John says, "You'll be sowing all through winter. When the spring thaw comes, they will find your body with a needle still locked tight between your frozen fingers." Now, this was obviously in the context there. This was about him saying, you better go in and fess up, because otherwise she'll just make you do lots of needlework for a long time.
Yeah.
But a lot of people have taken it as foreshadowing, given the fact that her sword is needle, that she's going to die. What do you make of this?
I mean, I honestly love that. It's not mentioned in the TV show, if I'm not mistaken, but it is. I mean, it's definite foreshadowing. Whenever you do an Arya prediction video, whenever you're researching for it, that's the #1 quote that pops up. It's like, well, there was this. If I'm not mistaken, it wasn't actually said to her in the TV show, but yeah, it's like he's trying to warn her about Old Man. I mean, it's definite foreshadowing. Like, that's one of those quotes where you can't even debate the other side that it's not foreshadowing, because not only does she hate sewing, but also it's like her sword's name. I mean, there's just no other way about it. It's definite foreshadowing that's how she could die. And one of the ways being, like, maybe in the final battle, the Night King is able to overcome Winterfell. She dies in that fight, and like when it's all said and done, we see her on the ground dead, clutching needle in her hand, and then the Night King raises her up, and now she permanently has needle. Like, she'll never let it down because she's going to be a white fighting forever. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is one of the possible endings for her, that she just dies. But personally, I think that the more likely route is not for her to be dying frozen in the north, but for her to carry on her natural character arc, which I think, yes, takes her up to Winterfell to reconnect with her identity as a Stark, but then to follow down with the rest of her kill list, which inevitably has to bring her down to King's Landing. So I think that is where her character arc is gonna take her. For me, just before I lose another super chat, Emmanuel, thank you very much. The Night Queen is buried in the crypts. Obviously, that's not completely related to Arya, but I'll just quickly answer that one for you from my perspective anyway, which is, yeah, I think that's a really interesting idea in the books. I don't think in the show they've not introduced this concept really, so I don't think that's like the goer at all for the show. I think that's a really interesting idea for the books. I've got some other thoughts on what's going on with the Winterfell crypts. If you want to check out some of my other videos, which I did there, to do with the Horn of Winter. But having the Night Queen, I think, is quite crucial to what the solution is going to be in the books. So I hope that one sort of answers that one. What I will do is I will do a live stream at some point in the next 2 or 3 live streams, focusing in, I think, perhaps on the Night's King and the Night's Queen, because I think that's the kind of one of the questions that come up quite a lot. So hope that one answers that one for you. Okay, Mark. So do you want to sort of going back to where we were? Where I asked you a while ago, sort of like big open question about where you thought she might end up, and generally speaking, you thought that she would survive, but not end up as sort of being a noble lady. So, what would you, if I had to pin you down to one likely scenario for either the books or the show, what do you think? What do you think it would be?
I'm gonna have to pull a greased up deaf guy on this one. That's a Family Guy reference. You'll never gonna catch me. Like I don't know. I can't. I gotta slip away. I feel like there's 2 scenarios. Either she ends up dying, and if she ends up dying, it's going to be, I guess you could say, easily by the Night King because he's on his way to Winterfell. But more so, it's going to be a whole leaving the pack lone wolf thing, trying to kill Cersei for vengeance for House Stark. So she's gonna, if she dies, it'll be that way. If she survives, she's either going to marry Gendry because that's what their fathers wanted them to do, was unite their houses, or take Gendry and leave Westeros because she can't stand Westeros because of all of the insane turmoil and all of the stress and just everything that she suffered from being there. She'll never be able to feel at ease in Westeros. So one way to do that is by traveling, and I guess you can kind of have it wrapped in a pretty bow if Gendry goes with her. So then you have the 2 houses like surviving through those 2. But yeah, as far as trying to pin me down on one, greased up deaf guy, I have to slip up.
Yeah, personally, I don't want her to get together with Gendry. I know they played this up a lot in the show, but it's just she doesn't come across to me as the kind of person who's there wanting to settle down. And she's changed so much. Yes, there was a little bit of a connection there when they were a lot younger, but she has changed so much by this point in time that I can't see that connection is still going to be there. So where I would personally go, and I'll have your thoughts on this one in a moment, Mark, is that for the books, and I think it'll be different in the show, but in the books, I think that her character arc takes her through to when we're taking this idea of killing and we're taking this idea of identity. I think that she will eventually warg into Nymeria full time, and then she will. The last we see of her is with her new pack, just bounding across the sort of the Riverlands somewhere on the hunt for something. I think that for me that would be a fitting end for her because she doesn't feel at place anywhere. I think that she doesn't feel at place with the faceless men. She doesn't feel at place accepting the role that she would have as a Stark, being a lady, ruling somewhere. She wouldn't feel at home being married off to somebody. I think that where she would feel at home most in the books is being with Nymeria. What do you think?
I mean, in the novels, like I don't know, man, because it can go so many different ways. Like I said, the Winds of Winter can drop tomorrow, and then my theory's debunked right away. So I'm kind of being a punk on that sense. But I mean, I feel more comfortable predicting her end game for the TV show because I know it inside and out. I've seen every episode probably 15 times. I haven't read the books a million times over like that. You know what I mean? So as far as where she's at right now, it's kind of like, yes, she's going back to Westeros. Yes, she's going to eventually make it back to Winterfell, but I don't really know. You know what I mean? Like, I think the meeting with Nymeria is going to go 100% different than how it did in the TV show. I think we both can kind of agree on that. But I mean, the way that you said it with her, like the last we see of her is like being worked into Nymeria. That's kind of something like that. Maybe she travels with Nymeria and her super pack of regular wolves, which I want to reemphasize that it's a pack of regular wolves because a lot of people think that it's a massive pack of dire wolves. No, just Nymeria is a dire wolf, the leader, but the rest of them are her wolf cousins, which are just like regular gray wolves. And I guess like red wolves and stuff. But anyway, I feel like her traveling with him, I do know that she has a connection. She works with her all the time, but I feel like because she is gone so long without actually having warg training, she's not going to be as in tune to it. He's like, what is it? Like 1 in every 100 wargs is a fuck. Okay, so a warg can just put their mind in a dog or a wolf, which is why they're called a warg. Then a skin changer can put it in another animal, like a bird. And then how does that saying go? 1 in 1,000 wargs is a green sea or something like that. Same idea. It's like Bran has got his training started right away, and he's just realized and fully actualized his potential. Whereas Arya has just been kind of like a subconscious thing. She knows that she's doing it, but not really. No one's straight up come up to her and been like, "Hey, you are warging." You know what I mean? And explained it to her. It's similar to like what's happened with Bran. Bran is getting this training on how to use his powers. You know, eventually I think we'll see something very similar to what we saw at the end of season 6, where Bran is forced to rush and get through this training with Bloodraven. I think Three-Eyed Crow. Jesus, people freak out when I say that. But it is Bloodraven, though. It really is. And we're talking about the novels here. So yeah, anyway, I feel like there's going to be a very similar situation that happened with season 6 where they're like trying to rush through it. But ultimately, with Arya and my ADD wrapping it back up, I would love to see something similar to what you said. I just don't know if she's going to be actually warped into Nymeria. So maybe we can agree for a change, and like she's with Nymeria, and she's got Nymeria and her super pack with her, and they're just like, I don't know, just out there going west to Westeros. Maybe she's got them all on a giant boat, and she's just final scene is Gendry because he's an expert rower. He's just like rowing them off.
He's pretty good actually. Get him on a triathlon or something. He's quite good on the running too.
Yes,
he's a man of many talents. That guy. I think so. I think we're sort of roughly in agreement there in terms of the show. And Crips, I saw your super chat. I'll come to that in just one moment if that's okay. But thank you for that. In terms of the show, I think what we're going to see is that Arya, yes, she's up north at the moment, and yes, she's going to be involved in that battle. But I think that there will inevitably be a time when she has to finish her list. This is where her entire story arc has been going right from season 1. She has been wanting revenge on certain people, so she is not going to let that go. So I think we inevitably have to see her heading down south to try and take out Cersei and the Mountain, who on the show are the only 2 people left on her list. So I think we will see that, and this is going to be quite a crowded scene to try and get to Cersei, because there are a lot of people who might be wanting to kill Cersei. Now, personally, I don't think that Arya will be the one to do that. I think that's more likely to be Jaime, although perhaps it will be Arya being Jaime with Jaime's face on. I don't know, but I think that works better for being the end of Jaime's character arc. But I think that Arya will head down south to King's Landing in an effort to try and kill the Mountain and Cersei. And I think that the key then is what happens at King's Landing at the end. I can see the Iron Throne being destroyed in a battle, probably with dragonfire, and I can see the whole thing that people were working to try and gain and get hold of is going to be completely done away with. And that is not going to be a small matter. That's going to be quite a huge issue. And I could certainly see her being caught up in quite this huge furnace of an inferno of dragon fire and armies clashing and people being murdered at King's Landing at the end. And I could certainly see that being her end point there. But what do you think? Do you think she's heading down to King's Landing? And if so, do you think that she'll make it out alive?
Shameless self-promotion again here. Go on YouTube, type in Sir Hunt's Arya Season 8 theory, and my 3 videos for Arya will pop up. But in one of those, I mentioned how, yes, I totally think that she's going to head down there. If she's not dumb, she'll take Sandor and Brienne with her, because Sandor wants to kill his brother anyway. And, well, Brienne won't have anyone to protect because Sansa's dead. Spoiler alert. Should have said that first. But, yeah, no. Honestly, I would just be happy if it was just, Sandor, because she needs someone else with her. Like, yeah, she's a pretty awesome fighter, but she needs someone else with her. And I feel like it would just make sense. Sandor wants to kill Gregor. I'm pretty sure he wouldn't mind killing Cersei too. So it's like, kind of have that working together.
Absolutely. Okay, guys. I think I'm going to round that up for Arya now. I think we've sort of we've come to a broad agreement on what's going to be happening there. But I think what I will do, perhaps from now onwards, is that when people come up with and Crips, I see your super chat starts with bit off topic, but I'll probably bundle up those bit off topic super chats, and then I'll cover them all at the end in a kind of a quick fire round with whoever else I've got on here. So didn't do the bundling up this time. And guys, if you've got any other things that you want to just discuss, now is your chance just to throw them there into the chat. But Mark Cripps has got here about this idea that Melisandre is the Night King's crazy ex-girlfriend, aka the Night Queen. What do you think? Is Melisandre the Night Queen? Discuss. Quick answer.
No. There's not going to be a Night Queen. I thought that was like a joking question, but no. As far as if you look at the science behind it, Melisandre's not old enough. We do know that, at least in my opinion, the Night King on the TV show was the first hero, like the first Azor Ahai, if you will. Melisandre's not old enough. She told us she was several hundred years old. I think Danny Dave told us she was something like 300 or 600. I don't know. You guys correct me in the chat. But she's not old enough. So no, she's not his. I don't even think there will be a Night Queen on the show, because that's more of like a book thing. Whereas it's mentioned specifically that the 13th Lord Commander did this dumb crap, and he basically worshipped and see, here's the thing. What is the difference between the old gods and the Great Other? There's so many nameless gods, because mainly, I think the main reason why they don't know the name for them is because they were written on runes by the first men, and those sort of wore away, or no one speaks the rune language anymore. So that's why there's these many faceless gods or these unknown old gods. They're just called old gods. How do we know that the Great Other isn't one of them? We do know that R'hllor has an opposite, where it's like everything he does is in light and in fire and in love, and then he has an opposing deity that does everything in the shadows. I can't think of the name of the guy. Maybe the Lord of Dark. I don't know. But, each god has their counterpart. So who's to say that the Great Other isn't the same as these old gods? And the 13th Lord Commander was just doing what the first men did, which was worshiping these older gods that eventually had a falling out with the I don't know, man. It's like a giant cluster, but there is no Night Queen on the TV show. It's just not a thing. Sorry. My opinion.
And I'd agree. I don't think the Night Queen is on the TV show, and I don't think Melisandre is the Night Queen in the books. I think that she's I'm going to plug a video now. I'm of the view that she's actually a fire white, which is a concept George R. R. Martin has started talking about being in the books. So I think that's what's going on with her, and I don't think she's old enough to be the Night's Queen, and I think she's got a very different agenda completely. In terms of just picking up that last point about the Great Other and the Old Gods, for me, the Old Gods are they started off as being this kind of like the worshipping the trees and the fields and the streams and things like that. But then
Native Americans.
Exactly, yes. But and over time, this then became the worship of the werewoods and the voices that come through there, because the green seers, the spellcasters amongst the children of the forest, they would put themselves, when they died, they would go into the werewoods, and so it was effectively a sort of an ancestor worship kind of thing, but becoming part of this hive mind. So that's what's going on with the old gods. In terms of the Great Other, my theory is that this actually comes from the sort of the Azor Ahai idea, is that they had to have a thing to be fighting against. If they've got a great god, then there must be a great god there. And bringing it sort of around the full circle, and almost agreeing with you again, Mark, which is that we've got to be careful, it'll become a habit, is that actually, if you're thinking about who is the creator of the White Walkers, of the others, certainly in the show, that's the Children of the Forest, and the Children of the Forest become part of the Weirwood network, and therefore, yes, you could argue that the old gods and the Great Other are at least linked, if not the same thing.
It's all connected. It's all
it is all connected.
Yeah.
But having done that wonderful piece of, like, because it says this in the show, it says this in the show, it must be the same in the books. I had a super chat from Tio Squeeze. Thank you very much for that. It's very kind. Saying, can we please not ever base anything from the show to the books? That ship has sailed. Whatever the original HBO agreement that HBO and George R.R. Martin had is different. I think we discussed this a little bit earlier, so excuses if we don't go into huge detail now. But for me, this is they will end up in roughly the same place. There will be some. For book readers, there will appear to be some huge differences, because there are some huge plot lines that aren't there, characters in different places. I suspect some people will live and die differently in both of them. I think show people, when told what happens in the books, will go, well, there's not much. I think the same broad pattern is going to happen. So I think that some of the things that happen on the show we can take in, for example, the Hodor reveal. It won't happen exactly the same way we've been told in the books, but it's the same principle. So we can take some things from the show and take them to the books, but we shouldn't just assume that because something on the show, it's in the books, if that makes sense. But I do agree with the last point you make there, TA Squeeze. Arya is going to kill some peeps. I do not doubt that for a second. Okay, guys, I think I'm going to start wrapping this one up now.
Wait.
Whoa!
Can I take a swing at the super chat?
Oh, you can take a swing. I will lean back and let you swing away.
All right, cool. And by the way, before I forget, guys, keep throwing up super chats to Robert so he has to stay doing this longer. But anyway, as far as that whole, like, the differences between the books and the show, like, no disrespect to you, but I disagree with you there. The difference is you're trained as a book reader, right, to question everything. You read passages multiple times, and I do it myself when I'm reading. You're trained to not take something as at face value. You can go and read another chapter that happened 3 books ago, and it completely changes how you think about what you just read. Because of that, book readers are constantly reading into things. And like I said earlier, when the final book comes out, there's going to be debates about what is actually taking place in certain chapters and in certain scenes for many freaking years. There's never going to be 100% ended. And George knows that. He knows that the mystery and all of the stuff that he leaves out or leaves open to interpretation is the best part of his stories. It's what keeps people coming back. It's why he writes in the style of, I'm in one chapter, one POV in one part of the world. Next page, I'm in a totally different person it's their first POV chapter in a place or in a position or whatever that's completely opposite from before. He knows that the mystery and the intrigue and the open-ended theorization or whatever you want to call it is what makes his novels so good. So if you think that you're just going to 100% know exactly how the books end even after you read it, you're wrong. But for the main part, is like you just said, it's just no way. It's almost like I kind of feel like they signed a contract. Like, why would George, a lot of people think that George hates the show because they hate the show. That's not the case. George is very proud of the TV show. He talks about it all the time. I follow him on Twitter. He tweeted out, it was like a couple weeks ago. He said, make sure you go watch. Like, I love what they're doing with the show. It's like, he doesn't hate the show. He's proud of what it is. You know what I mean? I'm sure he disagrees with certain points they took, and I'm sure he's disappointed in the way certain scenes came out and how certain characters got completely cut out. But overall, he loves the show. You know what I mean? So that if he hated what the show did, and if they didn't sign a contract, then maybe he could change it. But I honestly feel like just what you were saying, like the broad generalization of it, it's going to be the same ending. The journey will be insanely different, but the ending will be, for the most part, very similar.
I agree, and I think, as I say, my general view on the show and the books is that the show started as being an adaptation of the books. If you look at book 1 and season 1, there's a few little differences, but broadly speaking, it's the same thing. They've just taken almost scene for scene. The big scenes, they just transplanted one across to the other. And then they started diverging a little bit. And what we have now is what I would consider a made-for-TV drama inspired by the books. Which is not to say that it's not worthy in and of itself. I really enjoy it, and I know we all really enjoy it, which is why we're here chatting about it. But it's not exactly the same. It will be roughly the same. It will finish in roughly the same place. The characters are roughly still the same, but it's not an attempted adaptation anymore. So I hope that kind of makes sense there. And guys, I was about to wrap up, and now you've done another couple of super chats, so we're going to have to keep on here for another few minutes. And I'm going to blame Sir Hunts for this because he asked for them. Sorry, thank you very much. I do appreciate it, guys. Danielle Marston, and we're now firmly into any other business territory here, guys. So however random you want. Danielle Marston says. Forrest's Q&A, which I assume this was something that you picked up from in the chat, in which case, thank you. That's really kind. Maggie the Frog focuses on royalty when she predicts Cersei's future. Could the Valonqar be Arya, as in the current True King's sibling? That's a really interesting one. So for those who don't know about the Valonqar prophecy, this was, if you remember in the show, Cersei, as a girl with a friend, goes to visit Maggie the Frog, this woods witch, and she gets her fortune told effectively. And Maggie the Frog comes out with this prophecy, which has a lot of stuff to do with, and I wish I could remember it all off the top of my head, but yeah, the amount of children she's going to have, who she's going to marry, the fact that her children are going to die, and the fact that that somebody else, the younger, more beautiful person, is going to take everything from her. Now, that bit was all in the show, and then they left out a little bit at the end of the prophecy, which says that the Valonqar will wrap his hands around your cold white throat and choke you to death, effectively. So this is a prophecy, and pretty much everything that Maggie the Frog said other than that has come true. So we can put quite a bit of weight on this, and there's an awful lot of thought about, well, who is the Valonqar? Apparently the literal translation is little brother, but again, we know with High Valyrian that the gender pronouns and the rest of it a little bit mixed up, so maybe it could mean little sister. So the question here, after a long rambling intro from me, is go.
Sorry. I feel like hang on. I think it's not older brother. I don't think it's brother and sister. I think what's gender neutral is the prince that was promised and the princess that was promised. That is the in High Valyrian, that's gender neutral. I think Valonqar specifically is younger brother. I don't know. I could be wrong. I might be thinking opposite. Whereas it's the prince. I don't know. Sorry.
No, I mean, so you're right, and so this is where the confusion comes in. Is that the one time when we're told about this is with the prince that was promised. and that could mean princess. And as Maester Aemon says, that actually there's a little bit of uncertainty here. And we also know that there's a bit of uncertainty when they're talking about dragons, about gender as well. And George R.R. Martin did not design a whole language. He's not a philologist like J.R.R. Tolkien. He did not create an entire language for this. He just came out. He's admitted this. He came out with some cool sounding words, and then left it to some clever people to come up with the languages later. So what we know is that there are some words in High Valyrian where the gender of it is not quite clear. What we don't know is whether that's just some specific words or all words. So there's this little doubt at the back of our mind with the Valonqar. We know we hear it means little brother, but at the back of our minds we go, could that also mean little sister? So that's where that bit comes in. That said, could it be Arya?
I mean, if we're going down that route where it's like Arya is a younger sister, then I feel like I need to mention this because I mentioned it in our last live stream. I think it was over on my channel. I'm not sure, but make sure y'all go watch that. Me and Robert just discussed the history of the Targaryens. But I feel like if that's the case, it can apply to almost anything, not just one person, anything, meaning like Cersei could get pregnant, the baby could choke on its umbilical cord. It's a younger brother or a younger sister of her other siblings. And the fact that the baby is like, doing that can end up killing her during childbirth or whatever. You know what I mean? So if that's the case, then it could apply to that. As far as the prophecy applying to Arya specifically, no, I don't see it because it's just she does know a lot of things, but I feel like she left it open-ended where it's like we don't exactly, for the TV show anyway, we don't exactly know that if the younger queen that was supposed to come and replace Cersei was Sansa or Marjorie. I guess you could say it's Marjorie because Marjorie actually married Joffrey and had Cersei as the queen mother. But you don't really know. It could be Arya, it could be Sansa, it could be Marjorie, it could be any of those. But I think if we're going to make that broad aspect where it doesn't have to be literally her younger brother, so it's not Jaime or Tyrion, because remember, she's the oldest. She was born a few minutes before Jaime or whatever. If that's the case, it can apply to anything or anyone. I don't see it being Arya. I see it being the child that she's pregnant with. Having something happen during childbirth where, like I said, its cord, the baby maybe chokes on its umbilical cord, which I know is a crazy, insane thing to even picture or think about, but that could happen and that could cause Cersei to die. And yeah, I don't know.
Absolutely. So, I think with all of these things, we will only know as with all the best prophecies, we'll only know looking back on them and go, yeah, of course it fits there. My gut instinct is the Valonqar is Jaime because he is Cersei's little brother by a matter of a few minutes. She thinks it's probably Tyrion. That's who she's obsessing about. What matters most in A Song of Ice and Fire and A Game of Thrones is not so much the truth of the prophecy, it's how people react to it. It's not so much whether or not Melisandre seeing true visions isn't as important as the fact that she thinks she is, and she's doing things on the back of it. And with Cersei, it's the fact that she believes these things to be true that is driving so much of the action. It drives her how she views Tyrion. And what they focused on in the show was it drives how she viewed Marjorie, because she was worried that she was the younger, more beautiful person who'd be able to take everything from her. So for me, yeah, it could be Arya, but I think that there are other people who are more likely, if that makes sense. As I say, I've still got an outside bet that it might be Jaime doing it, or Arya being Jaime as a faceless person. So hope that one answers that. Michael Palmer, thank you. Sorry again for missing your earlier super chat. And by the way, big kudos that the people staying up late to be giving super chats seem to be British people, and it's getting quite late here. So kudos to you. Michael says Cersei escapes Westeros with Qyburn, and Arya and the Hound go on an eternal mission west of Westeros to find her. Discuss. Okay, so this is a great endgame theories. Now, on the first part of that, in terms of Cersei escaping Westeros with Qyburn. I am of the view that if we are going to have, and I'm trying not to say this word as much as possible because it is overused, but if we're going to have a bittersweet ending, that means that we are not just going to have the good people survive. We're not just going to have all like Sam because he's a nice person survive, Tyrion because we kind of like him, and he's and so, who insert your favorite character here. It's not just the nice people who are going to survive. There are going to be some people surviving we don't want to survive, and one of those people that we might not want to survive is Cersei. But as per the previous discussion, I personally think that she will get killed. I think that bit of the prophecy will come true. I think that she will get killed by Jaime. I think that's a natural end to his character arc. I think Qyburn may well survive. For me, he's the kind of person who will see what's happening and he'll figure it out, and he'll have worked out the ways out of the Red Keep because he's taken over from Varys, and so he will know all the ins and outs. I could certainly see Qyburn surviving, but perhaps not with Cersei. In terms of the second bit, with Arya and the Hound going off to hunt for her, Arya heading off into the west is indeed one of the options that a lot of people have come up with. Mark, I think this is something you've talked about before, isn't it? Why people think she might get on a boat and head west?
Yeah, she just I mean it's kind of just TV show only, but she's like she's talking with what's her name? She's one of the actresses with the company. God, I don't know how I forgot her name. She's a really pretty lady. I remember thinking how pretty she was. But basically, she's talking with her, and she asks her what she wants to do. And, she goes, what's west of Westeros? And she asks her that question. Does anyone remember her name? Can we type in the chat real quick? Like, I completely forgot her name, and it's bugging me. I keep wanting to say...
someone...
Yeah, I keep wanting to say Lady Forlorn, but I know it's not Lady Forlorn. I don't know. But yeah, no.
Lady Crane, wasn't it?
Yeah, Lady Crane. There you go. Okay. So yeah, she keeps telling Lady Crane, or she tells her that, what's west of Westeros. So that's where everyone thinks that eventually she's going to go west of Westeros. And what's out there is Lonely Light. And then like no one's really been any further than that. Or they have, and they came back and they said it's just ocean. So
absolutely. So I think that's definitely one of the options for her. I don't think they've played that up enough. Personally, the showrunners seem to like to do quite heavy foreshadowing of these kinds of things. So maybe they'll reference it again. But I think that it's slightly less likely. And the Hound, no, I don't think he's going to go off on a mission somewhere. I think that he's going to be at peace with himself, having again his character arc come full circle, and him facing the mountain, wielding fire. I've talked about this many times before, in a way that mirrors what happened when they were children, and the mountain pushed his head into the fire, leaving him scarred both physically and mentally. So I hope that one answers that one for you, Michael.
Would you? I was about to say, could you see the Hound being on a farm? Like, you remember he killed the farmer, or he didn't kill them, but he robbed them, and then he came back and they died there freezing. So would you see his ending being something similar to that? Remember, he had that big dramatic moment, and I think it was episode 2 of last season where he's burying them outside in the snow, and you have this heartfelt moment. And this was right, if I'm not mistaken, right before he goes in and looks in the flames and he sees the Arrowhead Mountain. You know what I mean? So it's almost like kind of like it would be a big circle. And that's kind of what he was doing when he was the elder brother character, or the show's version of the elder brother, is he was like, or the Gravedigger, I'm sorry. It's kind of what he was doing. He was like living a slower life outside of war, and, almost being religious. So
yeah, I think that'd be a good ending for him. I think he has to have this kind of like final meeting. And then the question is, what next? And I think we will get, definitely in the books, and I hope in the show, we will get an element of this what next. The shows have actually been quite good. I've noticed each season usually has the big set piece battle or confrontation in the second to last episode, and then the last episode quite often ties up a few loose ends and sort of sets a few other things going. what I imagine might well happen is that he then emerges out and like goes, what next? And that would, for me, seem to be his journey has been very much that realizing that it is a simple life that works for him. And so, yeah, I think that's a really good call. I'd not thought about that about that form. That would be a good place for perhaps him to just rebuild his life as a simple person who's not having to fight all the time. I think that would be a really quite touching way to end his story. A couple of other super chats from Emmanuel. Saying, Rob, when is the special wedding day, and where should I send the wedding gift? I honestly, I know I missed it first time. I didn't see who proposed to me, so I'm still gutted. So sorry, whoever that was, and I'll have a look back on the chat after this and to try and figure that one out. But that's kind. Okay, guys, I think now as we've answered the super chats, I think now I'm going to say I do need to go to bed because it is starting to get a bit late. So, Mark, why don't you just sort of round us off by just sort of in case anyone doesn't know your channel, where can people find you on the internet?
All right, you can find me at YouTube, and Sir Hunt's Reviews is my channel. And me and Robert just did a collaboration a few days ago. Go and check that out. We discussed a brief history of the Targaryens. If we covered the whole thing, it would be probably like 4.5, 5 hours because there's very extensive. But we had a lot of fun doing that, so go check that out. Also, Westworld content coming. Can't wait. 2 more days, people. 2 more days, 3 more, I guess, right? 22nd.
Absolutely.
For you, it's only 2 more because it's already 420 there, right?
If you mean the 20th of April, then yeah. So never can tell with you. Okay, so do check out Sir Hunt's channel. He's got some really good content there. As he said, I did a video with him, a collaboration just a few days ago. If you want to go check that out, that was really good fun. We were looking at a lot about the Blackfire rebellions and the Targaryen history. So if you're interested in that at all, do go and check that out. And as I say, he's got a lot of other really good stuff there as well. So have a look at that. In terms of my stuff, if you're at all interested in Westworld, come back on this channel 6 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow. We'll be looking at the end of season 1, and then on Sunday is going to be the start of my season 2 content, a live stream pre-show, really getting excited about what's going to be happening and trying to make a few predictions about episode 1. Patrons, please do check out the Tyrion narration I did from the Winds of Winter, the pre-release chapter. If you're interested at all in becoming a patron, I would really appreciate that. I've got a really great community growing there, and you get, as well as the audio narrations and things, then you get the chance to, I would prioritize your questions for things like this as well. If you want to check that out, link down in the description, or check out patreon.com/indeepgeek. Okay, guys, thank you so much. There's apologies if we didn't get to your question in the chat. There's been some really good chat there. Haven't had a chance to get to all of it, but thank you so much. Particularly thanks to the people who do the live chat, the super chats. Thank you to Mark. As I say, he's one of my favorite people in the community, and definitely be having him on again. Thanks for the chat, and I shall see you all again soon. Take care.
Bye.